This is weird. Cool. Okay. Anyway.
That was kind of the way it was at the library too, you know, the way that screen was. If you were in the back, you couldn't see what was on the bottom.
Or if you were in the right, the podium.
Yeah, the
I mean,
podium,
it was like 60% of it. But
It's just.
So we can go live whenever we want.
Okay.
Oh, we actually do the live thing?
Yep, it's got it.
Sweet. It works? Nice.
That's,
Thanks,
Full National.
I don't really either. I thought
Would everybody stand up with us today?
I thought we should do standard introductions, just in case anyone has any announcements, though. Well, yeah.
I'll stand over here though.
Well, we're ready, I guess, whenever you are then, Derek.
yeah, we're going.
Oh, we're going.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Sweet. Well, good morning, all handful of you. Thank you for braving both the hour and the weather. Yeah, actually, do we have any announcements? I'm usually not the announcement
So we
maker.
have a new time and a new location.
Yes.
It's here and
And we were
now.
the only ones who listened apparently.
Yeah, and we've been blasting it out on social media in hopes that people would come, but I think we'll have a couple of people straggle in, and I'm sure we'll have a second wave at 9 o'clock. So that'll be great. Location's done. So no, I don't have any upcoming announcements except for the fact that we've got a full schedule for April, which
right.
is awesome. Good job, Michael.
Hey, we're getting out there.
That was thanks
Nice.
to G-Beta and the Wisconsin Technology Council. So we're always still looking for people to help us recruit and for social media help, although I am meeting with someone for social media. So.
Wow.
The G-Beta companies are probably a good source almost all the time, right? Maybe they
Yeah, that's what we realized.
Maybe not each one. That's what you hope, right?
That's right, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every one of them would be required as part of their program to.
Right.
You have to present some morning, some Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we would love to make that a requirement. But,
Yeah, that would be great.
Force them to send down their Milwaukee classes too.
Yeah. Technically, they're still just volunteer opt-in, but enough of them were interested, so we're doing good. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Perfect. Well, we'll be here, same time, spot next week and going forward.
Yep.
Yeah, let's just do kind of brief announcements. If anyone else has any announcements, you can share them as well. All right.
So, I'm Diana Pastrana with M&M Office Computers. I design rooms like this.
Mark will come back to you.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds
you
good.
don't have to start yet.
I'm Michael. I work at HealthBench. I do software engineering there.
I'm Zach, Thursday's CultureCon.
Mac, Fine Point Consulting.
Josh, my background's in startup to enterprise scale engineering and operations and product, and kind of between things.
Dan LaCloche. I'm a content marketing consultant, and I work for a company called DLC.
I'm Dan Anderson. I'm in the accounting world. I work for Baker Tilly.
Derek, you want to give Field 59?
Sure. I'm Derek Kepler, founder and CEO of Field 59 Video. We're an online video platform for media companies, television, radio, and newspaper.
Oh, yes. So that always reminds me then that our sponsors are needing to be thanked. I'm not
Yeah.
Julianne, so
Yep.
I forget. But Field 59, Old National Bank, and they've been really generous in offering us this space and giving us the opportunity for time and whatnot. And then Crescendo as well for providing.
Perfect.
John,
Where did everybody park today? The only reason I asked is Andrew said, he said, I'm going to check with the landlord of the building to see if we can't get some spaces for our group.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I don't know if that'll happen, but it's nice of him even to think,
Yeah.
even to think to do that. That's my point, you know.
Yeah.
We're accustomed to paying when we come down here to 1 million cups over by the
Yeah.
library.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's street parking, but maybe that would be a good announcement to make
Yeah.
social media wise as far as best parking spaces nearby, ramps
Yeah.
that are accessible.
I think that this ramp is connected right here, is it
Yeah,
not?
yeah, but if you do end up paying for it, I think it's quite expensive.
Oh.
So I think it's, $6 an hour or something like that. So I've gotten stuck on that before. I paid for ramps down here.
All right, well, terrific.
All right.
I'll introduce Mark in that case. Mark and I met, I was saying, in college a number of years ago now. And Mark had a really good idea that he sort of half-pitched to me as we were drinking beer and playing pool a couple weeks ago. And I told him he should come and present. So I'll let you take it away, Mark.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Baozi Tutors. Well, first of all, I'm Mark. Let's see, backstory about sort of where this idea came from. I after graduating college, where I went to school with Michael here at the UW, I went over to Hong Kong for a couple of years because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And graduate school, and I majored in molecular biology, but I didn't want to go into industry. I didn't want to work for a pharmaceutical company, and I didn't want to do research because I'd worked in a wet lab for a few years, and it just wasn't for me. So go over to Hong Kong, and I'm like, I don't have work. I tried working at Hong Kong University for a while, and it just was not working out. It just wasn't, I didn't feel it. So I quit, and I got a job as a tutor over there, working full-time. And that was for a South Korean company. It was okay. I worked there for 7 months. Realized that there's this kind of insane market in Hong Kong for tutors, and China generally. But yeah, so I realized that I could actually make it as a freelance tutor out there. Basically, double my income, working half the time, and so that's what I did. So I went and I quit and I started doing tutoring, and immediately I realized that, oh crap, I don't have any connections in this industry. So it's I can't go out and talk to my own clients because there's this non-compete clause with my work. So I'm well, how do I find people? So I started Googling around, looking for sources of where to find clients. I go on, I think there's an expat forum where there's people advertising for tutors. There's Craigslist, of course, and all these different sites, right? And I stumbled across several sites, which some of them I have up here. One is called LearnPick. They actually did some rebranding because they used to be My Private Tutor. But this is their site, and I actually did purchase the service on this site. So it's a subscription model. Let's see if I can scroll. I'm not used to the scroll.
Sorry, Anne.
It's okay. But so this is their website. There's a lot going on here. This is not used to look like this. It was much simpler in their design. But basically their idea is that they charge a subscription of, I think it's anywhere from 20 to 30 USD per month to basically get access to as many contacts as they can find on the site. And so you can search tutors by area, by subjects, by gender, all sorts of things. This one's focused in Hong Kong, but I actually realized that the company that sort of makes this site also makes several other sites based in India and mostly Southeast Asia. So anyway, I thought, hey, that's a great thing. And I am sort of a cheapskate, so I didn't like that I had to pay even 20 USD a month for this service. And so once I started, I'd always do this thing where I pay for a month, or pay for 6 months, they offer a discount for 6 months, right? I'm just okay, I'm just gonna get as many clients as I can during that time. I just save all their emails, right? And then I'd stop. And I'd stop the service, and then I just go on with that. And I did that for 2 years before I sort of thought to myself, hey, I have a lot of free time, and I know that this is a pain point for people like me in this industry where, I'm just a tutor or I'm a client, right? I'm just trying to connect with someone. And there's all these middlemen who are sort of helping us find each other, but it's not that hard of a thing to do. And the crazy thing is this is actually one of the sort of nicer options, I thought. There's actually an entire, and this was really catering, as you can see, the site is entirely in English, so it really caters to that sort of expat community in Hong Kong. And the thing is that there's 7 million people in Hong Kong, and the schools there suck. And everyone does tutoring. And they're all looking for usually native English tutors. They're looking for people who speak English and can teach English and that sort of thing. Or biology in English, right? And so there's actually an entire sort of other market here of local Hong Kongers that is not being catered to. Or it is, but in a very poor fashion. So I actually tried to look up the site that one of the major players in the local market, and their site is currently down, I don't know why, but that's kind of cool. They're I don't know what's going on. So I actually also use this site, and this was one of the ways that I found one of the freelance contracts that I did. But this was even crazier. So instead of charging 20 USD for like a month of subscription service for as many clients as you can find right on the site, they would actually charge like the equivalent of basically like 200 to 300 per match. So I didn't use this one as often because I was like, I don't want to shell out that much money for one client. But it's actually like a lot of local tutors, I think, because they don't necessarily, they're catering to a different market, right? So they don't know that there's this other option of LearnPick. And LearnPick isn't like really, they're a company based in India, they're all over the world. They're not like really focusing on like targeting that local market as much. They're looking at the expats or the international students in those different countries. So my thought was, hey, maybe I can apply this nicer model of LearnPick, but like cater it to the local Hong Kongers. And so basically give them a much cheaper option for finding tutors than what's out there currently. And that's where Baozi Tutors comes from. So Baozi Tutors is a site that I have a friend, Wesley, who is a software engineer, and so we both worked on this site. During the 2 years that I was freelancing, I taught myself Ruby on Rails, and with the goal, basically the hope of being able to build Baozi Tutors or a site like it, right? And so this is what we came up with. It's not beautiful currently, and actually it used to be live because we were trying it out for a while, testing it out. Now this is the Heroku version, just because we didn't want to keep like paying the Heroku service fee for something that wasn't getting any users. Because right now, like the point where we're in is, as you can see, the site is sort of there. I guess we could call it an MVP. It's the thing that we're sort of struggling with right now, like the roadblock that we're having, is how do we get more people to find our site and to use it? Because the thing is, like, we're trying to cater to the local market there, and Google is a thing in Hong Kong, but currently, like the big advantage that the established players in the market have is that they're the ones coming up first in the search rankings. I actually know the guy who founded this other site that is currently down. Like, I met him and I've talked to him before, and he's been in this industry for like 30 years. So he's got like all these connections with all these different tutoring agencies and parents and all that sort of thing. And so I'm basically trying to compete with that. And the thing is, our model is much simpler. It's much cheaper from the tutor's perspective. And having been a tutor, I know that I would personally choose this over the alternative that's out there right now. But the problem is, like, how do we get people to know about it? Like, they're not just gonna, Google tutors and like find our site. They'd have to go like page 10 or 11 of the search results to like find us. So I'm actually going to Hong Kong today. I'm leaving later today. I'm not going there to like promote Baozi Tutors or anything. I'm going there to visit my fiance who's over there. But later in the fall, I'll be going back there for probably like a month or so. And the plan is that Wesley and I, we're actually going back together. We're gonna like stand outside of train stations and just sort of advertise our service with some t-shirts. And just be like, hey, like, try out Baozi Tutors. Like, you have a student who needs a native English tutor, like, find our site, and we'll just have like a website there, and that's sort of what we're gonna try to do. But before we do that, we're gonna also try to run some like Google AdWords campaigns. We got a few clicks from that, but it wasn't like super successful. It wasn't as like we didn't get as good of a return on it as we were hoping for. But yeah, so I guess the question that I have for all of you is, some of you having started your own businesses, like, how do you get past that point of like, okay, you have an MVP, like it could be ready to go, maybe with like a few tweaks, like obviously this UI isn't the prettiest, like we could do some things with that, but like where do you go from having the MVP to like actually getting that point where you have enough users to cover like your expenses? Like, what are some of the steps that you take? What do you start with, like Google AdWords, or do you go like do you advertise on Craigslist? Or I guess it's going to depend on the market, but I guess that's sort of what I am asking of you all. So that's sort of the idea behind Baozi Tutors. We're hoping. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we're hoping that if we can, we're really trying to focus small, like start very small. This is not, the intention of this was never to, start this huge company or anything. It was just trying to relieve this little pain point that I myself had, and it's kind of fun. So yeah.
So my initial thought process is the site that's going to be the most successful is going to bring the best tutors.
Sure.
And going to bring the best value.
Right.
So how do you recruit better tutors than your competitors?
Right. Sure. Okay. So the weird thing about this is, like, one of the sort of strange things about the tutoring industry in general, I think, but specifically in Hong Kong, is that there really isn't there's very little accountability. It's a very irrational market in the sense that there isn't a lot of information out there. I mean, you'd think that with something like grades, right, you could be like, oh, I had this tutor, and I got this grade, and so they're a good tutor, right? But there isn't a lot of record keeping, and a lot of the decisions that parents make, unfortunately, are made based on, like, are you white, right? Like, they don't want some, like, Asian-looking guy teaching their kid English because they're like, well, is your English even good? Like, so what I found is that I've actually crunched some numbers here and looked at the, I think I took 100 of each. I just picked 100. I went on a site, looked at the listings of 100 different tutors who were white and who were not white, and just took the average of their salaries, and the difference is like hundreds of USD per hour that they get paid. And so it's like pretty, so I guess to answer your question, like how am I going to recruit the best tutors? One of the ideas that we were actually thinking of later on as we're expanding is we have a lot of connections, obviously, with the UW campus, and part of the thing that, you can't, if you're a student on the UW campus, right, you want to get like a part-time job doing something that's pretty simple, maybe get paid like $10, $15 an hour, right? In Hong Kong, they're desperately in want of white native English tutors. And they don't like, the rates for online versus like in-person tutor do not vary too much. Parents don't have, especially with like, all these new video conferencing technologies, it's not like a big deal to them that like their kid is not in, they're in person with the tutor. So one of the things that we're thinking about moving into is how do we connect students on campus who are willing to work for such X amount of money with these clients in Hong Kong who are willing to pay X amount of money, and that's sort of the direction that we eventually want to go into. But right now, like we are not there. And like I also don't know how to, I don't know where to start. It just seems like so many pieces, like we're not at the point yet where we can, well actually that's not even true. I mean, we could connect people. It doesn't matter where you are really, like the site's available everywhere that there's internet. But yeah, like no one, like how do we get, I think a big thing that we're struggling with is like trust, right? Why should these, I think getting tutors is actually relatively simple. You give them a better deal. Like all these companies are offering basically the same thing. Like as a tutor myself, I'm going on, I'm researching like all these different companies. I'm just looking for the best deal, right? Like, okay, so I create a profile on there. Like it doesn't matter, like it's out there, right? I'm just trying to blast my service to as many people as possible, right? Who are willing to hear it. And so if I'm offering that to a tutor and I'm offering it for a cheaper price, like they're not, I don't see that as the obstacle, and I also have like a lot of connections with tutors in Hong Kong, so I don't see that as like an obstacle so much as the clients, getting parents to know about it. Because for parents, like why should I, it's free for parents always. Like, I don't know of any service out there that charges parents for finding the tutors, because really that's where like the source of the money is, right? They're the ones who are generating that demand. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for parents to come in and create an account, or not even create an account, just like to browse and find tutors, right?
Mark, just to kind of to take what all that you're saying, this comment here.
Right.
It sounds like and I know you're sort of in idea with a planned sort of pitch time in the fall.
Right.
It sounds like between kind of now and then is a good time to lock down whatever that angle is, that we were talking about before.
Right.
And it sounds like a lot of that angle hinges on like accountability or some way of vetting.
Right.
And you're going up against like giants so far as like clientele database, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it sounds like what those people don't have is like the rate my professor of tutors in Hong Kong.
Right.
And so, if parents are going on to your site and they're seeing a picture with the 4.6 star, whatever, details there for what they tutor or whatever,
right.
that might be an angle that you want to have sorted out before, pre-launch.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so I'm thinking that like a rating system is definitely something that we've considered. The only issue that I really have with that is I think it's so easy to it's very easy to sort of like I guess
I mean, maybe you include, so I think what you're saying is like the first couple of reviews, if they're bad, it looks bad.
Yeah.
It looks like you have crappy tutors.
Yeah.
You could include all of this minus the display of the scores until you have 10 scores on a given tutor.
That's a good point, right.
So that you have some weight behind it instead of just like one person didn't like this person.
Right, and then you get like this crappy.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the sort of the operating model you envision? So, I mean, a site like this is, making a market, right? Matching up buyers and sellers, like you said, like Craigslist. But it strikes me there's sort of a spectrum of the role that a company in that position can play, where Craigslist is maybe on one end of the extreme. They're just there, they're pretty passive. Really, it's just a platform.
Right.
Maybe something like Airbnb is on the other end of the extreme. They're there, they're making the market, but they're also actively solving the trust problem by putting themselves in the transaction flow.
Right.
So I think that addresses the trust problem a little bit. When I rent an Airbnb, I don't worry about it too much because if my stranger flakes out, I know there's this company that's established trust.
Right.
And it also, from a revenue perspective, potentially gives you a different angle.
Right.
I guess, sorry, I'm wandering, distracting my own question. Were you imagining that this makes the match and then backs away? It's done and everything else is between the parties, or do you stay in the flow?
Yeah, so, right. Definitely envisioning this as a more passive thing. Ultimately, we want to automate as much of it as we can, and because the way it is now, the other sites that are out there are very passive as well. The trust, it seems, that's something that I've been trying to nail down for a while, is like, where does that trust come from? I think for a site like LearnPick, like for me as a tutor using this, right, as a parent, you're just like, okay, well, I just want to find a tutor. I just go on any site, put it up there. There's like, thousands of tutors to choose from. I don't need to create like 5 different accounts. I'm not like desperately looking for. So, I go to the site, I see a lot of nice photos, I get some good ratings, some good testimonials, and I'm just good. I just wait for tutors to contact me. And usually it's like I've actually signed up as a parent on some of these sites, and you just get a flood of like, hundreds of phone, texting, whatever. On the side of the tutors, it's I think that's where the trust issue really is. Is I think like, how do you, so I want it to be passive because I don't think there's any, I guess I just never really thought that there was any need to step in there and say like, hey, we are, we're vetting our tutors and we're like a super, like we're gonna, it's always been this very sort of like trial basis kind of thing. I think the idea of like trying out your tutor is maybe the best way to establish trust.
A thought, and I hear you. I mean, it would be a totally different business to say we're going to vet the tutors, for example, right? Really different cost model.
Right.
You know, maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but it's different. So I'm with you there. But I think you could get into that space, like into that mental model on the part of the purchasing parent, even by just having a stable reputation system.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I go to Yelp, and Yelp's not vetting the restaurant.
Right.
I know that. You know, I also know there are all kinds of, reindeer games being played with the ratings.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that it has zero value to me.
Sure.
Right? And there's still some element of trust that I as a potential, restaurant goer, for example, would put in Yelp.
Sure.
So I think even just closing the loop on, okay, you made a match here, and you decide you're going to expect both parties to go, comment on the nature of the transaction. Like, I don't know, I think that's a start. If you do some work, then, then you have an authority to some extent as you reach both sides of that market.
Right.
And I also think you could maybe stay in the transaction flow without vetting. I mean, what if you said to the tutor, it's free, and we're going to take 0.5%.
Sure.
And you said to the parent, you don't have to worry about giving cash to this stranger running through us. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, right? There are lots of things to sort out, but 0.5% of anything at a zero cost basis, I mean, it can still be totally automated.
Right.
Yes, I agree that processing the money may add trust. I think that you can let the actual tutoring be something that's established between the end user and that, but you could establish guarantees based on efficiencies or like we're going to show up on time, or you don't pay and you make your tutors take that pledge. So I think you establish trust through things that are non-education based or more structure based.
Sure.
And I think that will make you more reputable.
Right.
Have you ever heard of .com therapy?
.com therapy. Oh, I have not.
They do online therapy sessions so that therapists can help people all over the country. And so I imagine, obviously speech therapy. So I imagine that you could almost do the same thing to connect UW students with, and then you're not solving the slight pain that tutors are feeling. You're solving this lack of demand that people are willing to pay a lot for.
Right.
And if you process all that payment, you take a percentage. And, but then you've got to build all that, obviously. But I see that as a big opportunity, and their business model may be beneficial to you as far as how they've made their therapists credible and their program credible.
Right.
It doesn't sound like you have resistance to online, tutoring at this point. So that's a benefit.
Yeah.
So it might be something to look into.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I will look into that.
Yeah, we're about at time, so maybe one more question.
Sure.
All right. Well, hey, Mark, I just remembered that I brought these mugs in today. So here's a mug for you.
Wow.
And I don't know if everyone in the room has a mug already, but Mark, you get to give someone a mug as well. Compelling insight.
Okay, well, I assume Diana. Is it? What's your name? Josh. Josh. Thank you, Josh. For your
welcome.
comments.
Thanks again, Mark.
Absolutely.
Thanks everyone for coming. I've got a jolt as well here shortly, so grab some coffee straight away so that I don't have to carry it all back across town. Thanks. Thanks.
Cool.
When do you leave for Hong Kong?
Well, so I'm going to Chicago tonight, and then my flight's tomorrow morning.
Is it direct over there?
It is.